So, as announced, we are starting a new topic today. We had 16 sessions on Vedanta. The objective of that session was introduce the key concept without following a particular textbook. So, having completed that, naturally we wanted to start with a introductory textbook, a traditional textbook. So we had different choices, like we had Tattvabodha, we had Atma Bodha, we had Vivek Chudamani. There are several books, but we picked up Atma Bodha because it is not too short, it is not too long. If you take a Vivek Chudamani, it is 700 plus verses, and if you take Tattvabodha, it is too small. So we went like some intermediate book, Atma Bodha. So this is a book composed by Shankaracharya. The objective of this book is to introduce the basic concepts of Vedanta. So just like we start with any classes, when we start a topic, especially with a scripture, we need to study it thoroughly. One thing is we need to know that where exactly that scripture fits within the overall range or the different types of system of scriptures we had. So in between, some people ask me also, like, can you give a overall introduction of the scriptures so that when we take up a particular scripture, we know exactly where we need to relate to that scripture. So what I propose today is we try to understand the length and the breadth of our scriptures, right from Veda to the Prakarana Granthas, and then we see where exactly Atma Bodha fits, so that we know exactly where this particular scripture fits within the domain of the entire scriptural literatures. It is extremely important that you need to understand the different types of scriptures, and that will help you to study it properly and you understand what exactly is the role of each of these scriptures. Makes sense, right? Okay, so with that, let's get started. And if you have any questions, please stop and ask that questions immediately. Means if it is out of topic, I may put that into the parking lot, but otherwise I'll try to answer that. Okay, so let's get started. So the first question is, let me ask you a question. What is your understanding of a scripture? What exactly is a scripture is? See, within Sanatana Dharma itself, we have different hundreds of scriptures. If you go to the other religion, you have Bible, you have Quran, you have Dhammapada. There are different types of scriptures in the entire spiritual or religious domain. So when you hear a term scripture, what exactly is your understanding? Anybody? Make a guess.
Holy book.
Holy means what?
Something our old rishis have written for us.
Something the rishis, for example, the rishis has written something on say Dhanurveda. Can you consider that as a scripture?
Yes, so it's
not at all. There is a difference, right? So what do you call as a physics book, and what do you call as a biology book? And some books you call it as, say, sociology book. Some book you call as biology. A body of knowledge, depending upon the content matter or the subject matter, it can be referred as a physics book, or a chemistry body of knowledge, or a biology body of knowledge, or a computer science body of knowledge. There are different body of knowledges available. A body of knowledge can be called as a scripture if it meets certain conditions. Anybody? Okay. So this definition of the scripture is given by one of the greatest monk in the modern world, who is Swami Dayananda. So he gave a brilliant definition of what exactly is a scripture. So he says, it is not his words, it is of course coming from the scriptural literature itself. He says, a scripture is a body of knowledge. See, considered with some divine authoritative, like it is not came from a human intellect. And what exactly is the subject matter? It has a subject matter which is not available using the normal means of knowledge. what exactly is the usual means of knowledge for you to understand something? If you take physics, it is your sense organs and probably your mind, right? So you observe a fact and from that fact you infer something. You may use some instruments for that observation. For example, you may use a telescope, you may use a microscope, and based on that you may derive something. That is exactly what is the body of knowledge of physics or a biology. But scriptures are talking about something which is not usually available through our normal means of knowledge. For example, what you can see by the eyes, yet what you can infer by the mind is not the main content of a scripture. So that is what it is. And this information is typically revealed to certain people. And that is exactly what a scripture is. This is a very good definition of the scripture. So with this definition, when you look at the Vedic scriptures, because the first definition of scripture, it is applicable to all the scriptures of the world, whether it is a Bible or a Quran or a Dhammapada or the Vedas, everything, that definition is applicable. Now, when you come to the Vedic scriptures, so we from the entire domain of scriptural literature, we are coming to the Vedic scriptures. The Vedic scripture means any scripture or the entire scriptural literature derived from the Vedas is called Shastram in Sanskrit. See, in some of our Indian vernaculars, Shastram means science. But here we use the Shastram with a different meaning. So let's try to understand what exactly is the word Shastram means. In Sanskrit, when you take Shastram, it comes from two root words. One is called Shas and the other one is called Tra. The word Tra, it's called Pratyaya. It means to protect or to teach or to protect. And Shas, the word Shas means through a commandment or through a teaching. So Shastram means that which protects you through teaching or through instruction or through a commandment. So that is what is Shastram. A literature or a body of knowledge through some instruction, it protects you. It protects you to live, means from lot of dangers, lot of problems. And that is what the definition of Vedic scriptures. Makes sense, right? Shastram, the word Tra is there in almost all the literature we have. Like mantram is what? That which protects you when you meditate upon that. That is mantram. So the Tra means protect. And Shastra means that which protects you through an instruction. Clear?
Yeah.
So in our literature, right, it's an evolution. Initial stages of our spiritual growth, the scripture will protect you through an instruction. It will give you a set of do's and don'ts. Don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. And do this, do this, do this. Then once you grow a little bit further, right, this instruction or commandment moves into a teaching mode. So initially, for a kid, right, you will say that don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. But once the kid grows a little bit further, right, it means, for example, you tell your child, no, don't touch the fire. Initially, the child may not even understand. So, but through a commandment, you make sure that the child is not getting into a problem. But later point of time, what is going to happen? When the child understands, if I touch the fire, it is not good for me, that it protects you through that understanding. So the role of a scripture is initially it appears to be some commandment, but you need to grow and you need to understand. And when you understand what is going to happen, again it is protect you. Okay, so that's the two stages of the scriptures. So with that, let's try to see in the Vedic scriptural literature. Vedic scriptural literature means any scriptural literature which is based on the teachings of the Vedas. That is what it is. We can say that there are 7 layers of scriptural literature because we have a vast system of scriptural literature. That is what we call as Sanatana Dharma, the eternal order. So the first layer is, of course, the Vedas. And the second layer is known as Sutras. And the third one is Vedas means it is the primordial scripture. It is revealed to the ancient rishis. And sutras are nothing but aphorism. We are going to see each one of them. And the third category of the scriptural literature is known as Smriti. Smriti means memory, that which is interpretation of the original scripture by somebody else. That is what is Shruti, Smriti. And then Puranas. Puranas means you see the stories like the Bhagavatam, Garuda Puranam, Vishnu Puranam. All these are Puranas. So the Vedic teachings through stories is what is Purana. And the fourth category, the fifth category is known as Itihasa. So they use some historical event to teach the Vedic teaching. So we will see what exactly it is. And the last two categories are known as Bhashyam. Bhashyam means it is the commentary of the other five. Like Vedas are properly commented, Sutras are commented, Smritis are commented, Puranas are commented, Itihasas are commented. This is what is Bhashyam. And finally, the last categories of the scripture literature is known as Prakarana Granthas. They are introductory book and also they could be very advanced book. And what we are going to see in this particular session is a Prakarana Grantha. So now you know where exactly is Atma Bodha fits into. Atma Bodha is the seventh layer of the vast scriptural literature we have. Have you heard of all these names at least previously?
Yes. Yeah.
Beautiful. So let's go and try to understand, get a very high level overview of each of these scriptures. So first layer is the Vedas. Vedas. What exactly is Veda? By the way, it comes from the root called Vid. Vid means to know. Vedas means knowledge. It is a noun out of it. Vid is a verb, means to know. Veda is a noun out of it. It means the knowledge. The knowledge about three things. The knowledge about yourself, the knowledge about the world, and the knowledge about the Ishvara. Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara. So the knowledge about yourself, the knowledge about the external world, and if there is a governing entity or a intelligent entity that monitors and controls this entire universe, what exactly is that entity and the nature of that. So these are the three subject matter of the Veda. And it's a vast literature. Almost 20,000 mantras are there. By the way, what is a mantra? I just explained. Just like Shastra, mantra means mana plus tra. So manana means what? Contemplating upon. And tra means again protect. So that which protects you when you contemplate upon that is a mantra. For example, if you contemplate upon Mrityunjaya mantra, which comes from Veda, it protects you. I promised I will do a one session on Mrityunjaya mantra and one more mantra we asked, Gayatri mantra, right? We will do that separately. But mantras are something that protects you when you contemplate upon that. And this Vedas, every verse in the Veda is known as a mantra. So it is a vast literature. It is a body of knowledge. It means knowledge about yourself, the God and the world. And this is known as Vedas. And one sage, Veda Vyasa, means the Vyasa means a compiler. Veda Vyasa means the one who compiled the Veda. So a sage called Krishna Dvaipayana later came to be known as Vyasa. He compiled these vast literature into 4 Vedas. Rik, Yajur, Sama and Atharva. Rik, Yajur, Sama and Atharva. The Rik Veda consists of all the mantras revealed to various rishis at various point of time and in the form of poetic compositions, right? When a rishi in his deep contemplation gets a message revealed to him, for example, the Mahamrityunjaya mantra got revealed to sage Vasishta, whereas the Gayatri mantra got revealed to Vishwamitra. So each rishi are known as seers, means that is the literal meaning of the word rishi. The rishi means one who discovered the mantra. So it is not coming from their intellect. It is believed that these mantras got revealed to them. And whatever they got revealed, they expressed something as poetry. Sometimes they expressed it in the form of a prose, and sometimes they expressed it in the form of a song. So Vyasa, what he did was, whatever people compiled in the form of poetry, he organized everything that into Rigveda. So Rigveda is a compilation of all the Vedic mantras which are written in a poetic form. Yajurveda is a compilation in the form of prose. And naturally the Samaveda is a compilation of all the song. That is why Samaveda is considered as the mother of all the Indian music. It talks about 3 different notes, Anudatta, Udatta, Swarita. So like that, in fact, 4. So those musical notes are being used, and you can chant the mantra in the, meaning you can sing like a song with the swaras, with arohanas, avarohanas, etc. That is Samaveda. Atharva Veda mainly was grouped based upon the compilation by 2 rishis. It is Atharvana Rishi and Angiras. There are 2 rishis were there. One is called Atharvana and the other one is Angiras. And their compilation put together form Atharva Veda. And Atharva Veda has a mixture of poetry is there, the prose is there, and the songs are there. So this is the organization of the Vedas. Very high level overview. Got it? Any questions? Okay, so this is a high level diagram. You can see the Vedas are 4 in number: Rig, Sama, Yajur and Atharva. So each of these Vedas has 4 parts. One is Samhita, which is the basic mantra, and then the Brahmanas, the rituals. I mean, the first portion of the Veda is mainly the ritualistic part. So the rituals means how this can be used in rituals, and Aranyakas is a kind of meditation on these rituals. And finally, the last part of the Veda is known as Jnanakanda, which is known as Upanishads. And the Upanishads reveals the nature of yourself and Ishvara and the connection. So the Vedas has on a high level 2 categories. One is called the Karma Kanda, which talks about the ritualistic portion of the Veda, and the Jnana Kanda, which talks about the knowledge part of the Veda. And this ritualistic portion of the Veda, right, it is an emulation of our worldly activity. So in the world, what we do, we work hard for earning money or earning like some luck, or sometimes we work hard to say to avoid certain thing. For example, if it is a disease or a pandemic, we do some worldly activity. Like that, every worldly activity is emulated or simulated through a ritual. That's exactly what is the first portion of the Veda. Whereas the last portion of the Veda is not even talking about any ritual, it is talking purely about the knowledge. And in our sessions, our focus is the second part of the Veda, or the end portion of the Veda, and that is why it is essentially known as Veda Anta, the end portion of the Veda, that is typically known as Upanishads. And there are 10 main Upanishads. Upanishads are many, thousands of Upanishads are there. At least we have compiled at least 108 Upanishads in the modern world. And this, out of this 108 Upanishads, 10 Upanishads are known as Mukhya Upanishad or principal Upanishads, because Shankaracharya has written commentary. Why? Because if you study these 10 Upanishads, you get the end-to-end picture. It gives you a holistic, complete view. So this is a very high level overview of the Vedas.
So, Rajaji, question.
Please.
When they say Vedanta, is it the same as Upanishads?
Absolute. No, actually the Vedanta means any teachings based on the ideas of the Upanishads are broadly called as Vedanta. Strictly calling Vedanta means it is the Upanishads. So it started with the what exactly is the content discussed in the Upanishad, and then what happened? Secondary scriptures started evolving based on that teaching. For example, sutras, the other literature started evolving, and all that can be considered as Vedanta on a high level. But to be specific, Vedanta means it is the end portion of the Veda.
Namaste, Rajeshji. I have a question.
Sure,
Can you
go
go
ahead.
back to the previous screen?
Yep.
Okay. So here the Samhitas and our mantras, Brahmanas, rituals,
Right.
and then from Brahmanas, the Aranyakas have evolved.
Aranyakas got evolved. It is kind of a meditation on these rituals. It is a little bit different. Aranyaka means it is the forest. That is the literal meaning. So when you evolve, like you go to the Vanaprastha side, and at that point of time you start meditating. Again, it is the rituals, nothing more than that. There are a lot of
The Jnanakanda portion is about what you're teaching right now.
Absolutely.
When you concentrate on that, right? That
Abs-
doesn't involve any kind of ritual.
not at all. So we are,
Correct. But when you hear the Karma Kanda, are we supposed to observe both the Karma Kanda and the Jnana Kanda, or only Jnana Kanda is enough and forget about the rituals?
you can definitely, the Shankaracharya in his commentary say that karma means you can do karma if you want. You don't have to stop it, but you have to change your attitude. For example, you don't have to renounce the worldly karma when you go to the Jnana Kanda, right? Means if you are a doctor, you can continue to be doctor. What we are asking people to change is their attitude towards karma. So essentially, when you learn the Jnana Kanda, these karmas will be converted as a karma yoga. So we will talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah, correct. But the Vaidikas, the people who are following the Vaidikas, like the priest and all those people, they are doing the Karma Kanda portion.
Correct. But they can do the karma kanda as a yoga. Then what happens? It won't bind you. Whether it is Laukika karma or Vaidika karma, you can do it as a yoga. When you do it as a yoga, it won't bind you. Otherwise, what I'm going to do? I'm going just doing a ritual to get money. It is no way different than a person working in the Wall Street. Both means there is nothing wrong in that, but it won't help you to grow spiritually at all.
But that is their livelihood, right?
That is their livelihood. Yeah, but means the person working in Wall Street, that is their livelihood. So the difference is the same karma. When you work in the Wall Street, you can do that as a karma yoga. When you do that as a karma yoga, the same result you get, but you won't get bind with that. So we'll see this later. But the thing is, whether it is Vaidya karma or Laukika karma, if you do with proper attitude, it is fine. You don't have to stop anything. That is the difference in the Vedanta. Vedanta is not rejecting any schools, but it is helping you to grow further. That's it.
Thank you.
Okay. So let's go to the second category of literature, which is known as Sutra. Sutra literally means it is aphorism. Aphorism means something written in the form of a short, concise statement. A simple example is E equal to mc square. Einstein wrote that. It encapsulates an entire big idea, right? So the whole thing is encapsulated in a small, concise statement. So Sutra came at a time when the tradition was completely oral. There was no written literature. So you needed a means to capture everything in a codified form, and also you wanted to transfer this teaching from one person to the other easily. So Sutra helped a lot. So the sutras help you to remember this mentally. For example, Yogaha Chittavritti Nirodha. Very easy. It's a small phrase. That's it. But that phrase has a lot of meaning. And see, the only difference is we believe that Vedas is revealed knowledge, whereas Sutra is a product of a human intellect. So somebody who understood means from the understanding of the Vedic literature, they composed sutras. For example, Brahma Sutra, if you take, it is a composition of Vyasa. Vyasa, from his understanding of the Vedic teaching, he composed Brahma Sutra. Patanjali, from his understanding of yoga, Vedas, he composed Yoga Sutra. Maharshi Narada, from his understanding of the Vedic teaching, he compiled the Bhakti Sutra. So these are written by rishis. So this is a product of a human intellect. But of course, the evolved human being. Whereas we believe that Veda, even though it came through the mouth of a rishi, it was revealed to him. Whereas Sutra, he composed it. That's one difference. One more point about Sutra. Sutra, there are two functions for the Sutra. One is called codification and the other one is called classification. The codification of a Sutra literature means it is properly coded. Like Vedas are not sequenced. like different topic. When we study Upanishad, you will understand. It doesn't follow a sequential order at all. Whereas if you take Bhagavad Gita, it follows a sequence. From one verse, you can see a perfect sequence. A train of thought is there. But if you go to Veda, you won't see that. That's why I was telling, like, we need to study these initial literature before we go to Vedas. So Vedas, it talks about a diverse topic, but not arranged in an organized way. Whereas Sutra pulls these ideas from Veda and present that in a very sequenced form. So that is the classification part. So the classification of the Sutra, of the Vedic teaching, it helps us to understand this properly. For example, Patanjali, what he did was, he classified the teachings of yoga, which is spread across the Veda, and put that into a Yoga Sutra form. So it helps you to understand it properly. So that is, the code means this codification is important. And then you have called clarification. Clarification means sometimes it appears that some of these Vedic teachings are very vague. Because we talked about the Karma Kanda, right? And Jnana Kanda. And lot of clarification is needed. And sutras, what they did was, if a teaching appears to be a little bit confusing or complicated, sutras clarify that. So in crystal clear terms, the sutra explains the ideas, and it also provides the sequence. So the clarity and also the sequencing is the beauty of sutras. And in fact, there are three popular sutras. One is the Brahma Sutra of Vyasa, Yoga Sutra of Patanjali, and the Bhakti Sutra of Narada. So this is the second category of our vast scriptural literature. Got it, right? So Vedas, first layer. Second layer is Sutra. The third layer is known as Smriti. So Smriti means what? Memory. Shruti means what? What I am hearing. So the Vedas are known as Shruti. Some teachers, from what they heard from somebody else, they started writing certain literature. And that is what is known as Smriti. So Smriti literally means that which is remembered. So it is an interpretation of their understanding for a particular time or for a particular age. So these popular Smritis are like Manu Smriti, Yajnavalkya Smriti, Parashara Smriti. All are Smritis. But in the modern context, they don't have much relevance because it was written for a period of time. And if you read that now, you won't even understand. It can be misinterpreted a lot. So there is not a lot of value for these Smriti literature at this point of time. And there is a clear definition. If a Smriti contradicts the Shruti, Shruti means Veda, Smriti means these remembered literature, you have to take the Shruti and reject the Smriti. So that is why some of these Smritis, you can see that it contradicts from Vedic teaching. For example, if you take Manusmriti, it can be misinterpreted. I'm not saying that that is the intent, but it can be misinterpreted as, okay, women are treated separately, and you see some of the categories of people are treated separately. So that is not in line with the actual Vedic teaching. So those portions should be rejected. So in the modern world, this Smriti literature do not have much significance. It was related to a particular period of time, a particular social order, a particular situation. So that's why it do not have much importance in the modern world. Whereas sutras, which is talking about the timeless teachings of the Veda, do not have any issue, because you can use all these sutras now just like you were using that 5,000 years back, and that can be even used even after 5,000 years. It is perfectly fine. So, but just for the sake of completeness, I wanted to mention the Smriti literature also. For example, the Manusmriti has that famous or notorious quote, Na Stri Swatantri Marhati. But people don't quote the other three lines prior to that. Like that, it is subjected to a lot of misinterpretation. So that's just a FYI. Let's move to the next literature. This is called the Puranas. The fourth layer of scriptures is known as Puranas. So Purana, the definition means Pura api nava eti. Nava means new or relevant or fresh. Pura means ancient. So Purana means it is extremely ancient, but it is still fresh. That's what it means. And it is going to remain ever fresh. So the idea of Purana is to present this teachings of the Veda, right? To present the teachings of the Veda in the form of stories. So, for example, like Bhagavata Purana is a popular Purana. It talks about the same Vedic idea, but in a story form. So, because it's easy for anybody to understand. One of the idea is the basic idea conveyed by the Puranas or the Itihasas later we see is one message of the Veda. It is called Dharmam Chara. Dharmam Chara. Follow Dharma. And what is Dharma? We will explain that a little bit later when we go to Atma Bodha. So Dharma on a high level, please understand that what needs to be done. It is not religion. It is not a particular code of conduct. But for example, the body has a dharma. If you don't exercise, you are violating the dharma. Your speech has certain dharma. You cannot violate that. You cannot use abusive words. That is violation of dharma. You have a social order because how do you interact with other people? You cannot cheat another person. That is dharma. So dharma means it is the natural order of the universe. And these Puranas, in the form of stories, it is going to help you how to follow the dharma. And now, who wrote Purana? It is believed, I don't know whether it is true or false, but it is believed that sage Vyasa composed all the Puranas. And how many Puranas are there? 18 main Puranas and 18 subsidiary Puranas are there. So overall, 36 Puranas are there. And he composed stories depending upon your own taste. For example, some people are fond of Vishnu. So you have Vishnu Purana. And some people are fond of Lord Ishvara in the form of Shiva. Because we will see that all these Shiva, Vishnu, Devi, Subramanya, everybody is same. But if you want to relate to Ishvara in the form of an ascetic, in the form of Shiva, that is fine. If you want to relate to Ishvara in the form of Vishnu, that is also fine. Because the method of relating to Ishvara is different, the worship is different, the stories are different. So it helps you to connect God in a way that is convenient to you. So that is why these 36 Puranas are there. Skanda Purana is there, Garuda Purana is there, Brahmanda Purana is there. There are a lot of Puranas. Out of all these, most popular Purana is Bhagavata. The next literature is known as Itihasa. Itihasa is the fifth layer of our scriptural literature. The word Itihasa, it's a compound word again. It has three compounds. One is called Iti, second one is called Ha, and the third one is Asa. Iti means thus or in this way. Ha means definitely. Asa means occurred. So something happened this way, or you can say that definitely something happened. So the difference between Purana is Purana means it is mythological stories, whereas Itiha, because you are talking about something that is not happened, means beyond the human world. But if you want to relate to something, which happened in this world based on a real history, because I'm not interested in what happened in Kailash or Vaikunth or in Brahmalok, but I wanted to know something happened in the history. So what they did was they took a couple of historical incidents happened in ancient India and they developed some stories on top of that. Again, Itihasa means it is based on history. You cannot say that the entire Itihasa is history. Of course, fictions was added. Let's be honest. Fiction was added, but of course the historical event was there. So you can see the exaggerations. For example, those who know Ramayana, how many heads Ravana has? 10 heads. So that is not practically possible. That is the exaggerations. So in Mahabharata, Ramayana, you can see that. So the two Itihasas in our scriptures are, one is Ramayana with 24,000 verses, composed by sage Valmiki. Wonderful book. I'm reading it. I'm amazed to see the literal genius of Valmiki. And the second one, what is I was telling in the last class also, the Vedanta class also, it always makes me perplexed. 100,000 verses. So I was telling you, right? I was planning to read it, and I thought, okay, 1 year I will read 2,000 verses. That means approximately 8 verses per day, right? If that is the case, it will take 50 years for me to read it. How can somebody compose it? It is that vast. So this is Mahabharata. So the primary purpose of the Itihasa is to present history exactly as it happened, right? The primary purpose is to demonstrate Vedic teaching. So we uses history as a means of it. Correct? That's a huge difference. So you take the historical event, you add or you adjust that historical teaching in such a way that it can be used as a means of presenting a beautiful ideas from the Veda. So that is what is Itihasa. So Itihasas and Puranas both present the Vedic teaching, essential teaching of Dharmam Chara, in the form of a story, and the difference is Itihasa is based on history, human history. Puranas are, of course, it is celestial history. Actually, we don't know whether it happened or not, and it doesn't matter to us. But it demonstrates the Vedic teaching very well. So these are the 5 categories of literature. So one more point, right? So for example, if you take Mahabharata, sometimes you can see even a small idea. For example, in Vedas you see Satyam Vada, always speak truth. That one idea goes to thousands of verses in Mahabharata through the story of Harichandra. Dharmam Chara, through the story of Rama, it expands 24,000 verses. So like that. And another style of this Itihasa and Purana is, it is Anvaya Vyatireka approach, meaning it tells you some good example, what you can follow, and it gives you some wrong example also. You know that you should be like a Prahlada. At the very same time, it tells you what? You should not be like a Hiranyakashipu. So this is what is Anvaya Vyatireka. This style is followed in all the scriptures. And Mahabharata, which is one of the best literature in the world, nothing is black and white. Everything is grey. Every character you can say a little bit of black and some white. Only difference is that, for example, if you take the Pandavas, you will see a little bit more white there. Every character has a grey shade and the degree varies. Dark and white means it's not the color I meant. What I meant is their nobility, right? Means all the noble characters, I mean, none of them are 100% noble, and even you can see some good qualities in Duryodhana. And you can see some bad qualities in Bhishma. You can see some bad qualities in Yudhishthira. So that's how Mahabharata is composed. And it's such a wonderful literature. So this is the 5th category of literature. Let's go to the next category of literature. This is called Bhashyam. Bhashyam refers to the commentaries written on the first 5 layers of the scriptures. For example, whether it is Vedas or Sutras or Smriti or Itihasa or Purana, sometimes what happens is you need to understand this properly. Lot of difficulties are there in understanding the scripture because you need to have a proper teaching methodology with proper example, proper framework to understand any body of knowledge. So for example, if you take physics, there are a lot of teaching methodologies, right? All these logics, all these additional teaching methodology, all that came to teach it properly. Without the help of this teaching methodology, which is known as Sampradaya in our tradition, this teaching methodology is very important to understand the scriptural literature. So if you just go and read a scripture, it can be misinterpreted, unfortunately. So just to avoid that misinterpretation, certain teachers have written commentary. Commentary means it is beautifully written, word by word, what exactly it means, using a lot of references. And a lot of teachers have written, in the world of Advaita Vedanta, it is Shankaracharya is considered as one of the greatest teachers. In the world of dualism, it is Madhavacharya. In the world of Vishishta Advaitam, it is Ramanujacharya. But the point is that you need a traditional master, and whoever teaching you should be exposed to that traditional teaching. Otherwise, you lack clarity, you lack sequencing, and all that problem is there. And luckily, we are so lucky to have a teacher like Shankaracharya, who was able to comment upon almost all the scriptures. So there is a famous saint in Kerala. His name is Srinarayana Guru. He used to call Shankaracharya as Sarala Advaya Bhashyakara, because without his Bhashya, nothing can be understood properly. And you would see anybody who exposed to Shankara's commentary, you can see how logical he is. For example, the Bhagavad Gita commentary, before he starts the Bhagavad Gita commentary, he dismisses all these Purvapakshis. Purvapakshis means those who are addicted to the rituals. And these Purvapakshis believed that even animal sacrifice is sanctioned by the scriptures. You can kill an innocent animal to please the god. So that was the belief at that point of time. You should see how he broke that type of arguments beautifully, because the scriptures can be misinterpreted. There is a verse in Mahabharata. The verse tells the Vedas are supposed to be removing the fear of everybody. But the Veda that is meant to remove all the fear of all the people is afraid of something. What is that? Misinterpretation. So to avoid that, you need to make sure that our teaching is grounded on the traditional teaching. We are allowed to interpret that in a modern way. For example, in our classes, you can see all the modern examples like software, hardware, all these movies and all these modern things. But it is rooted and grounded on the traditional teaching. It is very important. So that is why this Bhashyam is very important. Let's go to the final category of the scriptural literature. It is known as Prakarana Granthas. Prakarana Granthas means they are advanced textbooks or introductory textbooks written by various teachers to explain the teachings of this Vedanta. So the Bhashyam focuses only on one text. For example, if you take Shankaracharya's commentary on Mandukya Upanishad, he is focusing only on that. Whereas, for example, if you take the commentary of Vyasa on the Yoga Sutra, it is exactly only on Yoga Sutra. Whereas this Prakarana Grantha, they collect information from all these scriptures and explain that to us and introduce this teaching. And there are two types of Prakarana Grantha. The first category is known as introductory textbooks. So the popular textbooks are Tattva Bodha, Atma Bodha, Viveka Chudamani, Aparokshanubhuti. All these are introductory textbooks, and we are supposed to study these introductory textbooks before we get into the study of Upanishads or Bhagavad Gita. Reason is what? This is my favorite example. Suppose you are an ordinary layman. He is conversing with a software engineer. Two software engineers are talking. One person is saying that, okay, get that data from that table. The ordinary layman would wonder what exactly is the table is, right? Because there is a specific meaning for that technical term in the domain of computer science. Outside of that computer science domain, it can mean different things to different people. So it is extremely important for any student to understand what exactly is these technical terms are. And these Prakarana books explains the basic concepts along with these technical terms to a student. So once you have that background, you can go and study the higher scriptures, right? This is layer 7. You can go to layer 5, layer 3, layer 4, layer 1. So the purpose of these books are introduce the technical terms and the basic teachings of the Upanishads or Veda, so that when you go to a not so organized Veda, you won't be completely surprised. So that is the first part. And then the advanced Prakarana books are there. So that books are supposed to be studied after studying the Vedas. For example, Panchadashi. So these Prakarana books, there are two types of Prakarana book. One is pre-Vedic study or the pre-Upanishadic study. You have to study these books. And the second one is post-Upanishad study. It gives you a summary of the Upanishad. It gives you some connections of that Upanishads. So two books come to my mind is, one is Panchadashi and the other one is called Dakshinamurti Stotram. It is considered as a simple literature, but it is a PhD book in Vedanta. So this is the two categories of these Prakarana Granthas. So these are the 7 layers of our scriptural literature. So once again, we saw what is a scripture. It is a body of knowledge which is not available or which cannot be grasped using the normal way of our means of knowledge, like with your sense organs or with your understanding. So the Vedic literature, what we call it as Shastram, the literal meaning is what? It protects you when through instruction, initially through commandment and later through instruction or understanding, teaching. And then the entire system of Vedic literature can be classified into 7 layers. And the first layer, of course, is Vedas. And the Vedas are 4 in number. And they are compiled by the sage Vyasa. Rik, Yajur, Sama, Atharva. The Padya Pradhanam or the poetic form were classified into Rig Veda, whereas the prose content was classified as Yajur Veda, and the song content was classified as Sama Veda, and Atharva Veda has all the 4. Atharva Veda, the grouping came because it is the compilation come from 2 rishis, right? That is what the Atharva Veda is. And these Vedas are considered as revelations of God, and they were not written by human intellects. And this is the primary scripture of our Sanatana Dharma, modern world known as Hinduism. So this primordial scripture, so if any other scripture contradict with Vedas, we should take Vedas. That is the idea. And these Vedas are also known as Shruti because it is not remembered or analyzed. It is what is heard from the higher. And the second layer of literature is known as Sutra literature. Literally means it is a thread that connects all the Vedic teaching in a sequenced way, in a clear way. That is sutras. And we saw that it codifies and clarifies the Vedic teaching. And the 3 popular sutras are Brahma Sutra of Vyasa, Yoga Sutra of Patanjali, and Bhakti Sutra of Vedavyasa, means Narada. And the next layer of scripture, which is the 3rd layer, is Smriti, which is in the form of poetry, but it is what a rishi remembered from the Vedic teaching. That's it. And as I said, it can be outdated in the modern world. And then the 4th layer is Puranas, which is full again in the form of poems. And these Puranas are ancient, but they are still relevant, and they present the Vedic teaching in the form of stories. And the 5th layer is known as Itihasa, which is basically the history. History is used to present the Vedic teaching. The entire Itihasa is not history, but the purpose is to present the Vedic teaching in the form of historical stories. And the 6th layer is Bhashyam, which is the commentaries written upon the other 5 layers. And the 7th layer is the Prakarana Granthas, which could be advanced textbooks or introductory textbooks. Some of these would be studied before the study of the Upanishads, and some of them should be studied after the study of the Upanishad. This is the entire scripture literature. So we started from the domain of scriptures. From there we came to like the Vedas, Vedic literature, and within Vedic literature we saw the 7 layers of scriptures, and then within the 7 layers, now from next week we are shifting our attention to the 7th layer, which is Atma.
पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते. ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः.